We'll see. Hello and welcome to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I am your host, Gary Morgan. With me, as always, my good friend, Jim Stam. How you doing, brother?
Good, man. Dude, we got a lot to pack into this episode, don't we? We got all kinds of topics. We got a new guest. We got a young buck with us today, don't we?
That's right. Somebody who's coming up with the team right now. Grew up in misery, and here he is. Austin.
Not Missouri. Misery.
Austin is with us. I'm going to let him say his last name because I'm still bad at it.
Ravis.
Ravis. All right. I will get it by the end. By the last segment,
yeah.
I'm going to say, this dude, Aravis, go check him out. I'm going to know it by the end, like the back of my hand. So, yeah, we're going to talk about a ton of stuff today. First thing we're going to talk about, the elephant in the room, Mitch Keller. I mean, Jim, how long we've been saying that it was going to be crucial to lock him up in this whole thing? I mean, do a little bit about how you feel and feel free to bleed into why it was so important.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think everybody's been waiting for this for a while now. What struck me first about it was it seemed to me like both sides would want to get this done, right? Because the Pirates know how critical Mitch Keller is right now to the whole situation. And I just kept thinking from Mitch Keller's side, every time you go out there, you are risking something bad to happen with your elbow, with your forearm, something in that regard. And so I just felt like, man, there's got to be some real middle ground. They should be able to meet here. I'm glad it got done before the season started. I think it gives that just a little bit of a boost to everybody, a shot in the arm, considering what came out, the day before, which was the exact opposite. So it's funny how that stuff works out. On a personal level, I'm super, super happy for Mitch Keller. By all accounts, he's like the best dude, good teammate. He's had the ups and downs. He's gotten ran over in this league, and a lot of guys don't make it back from that. So good for him, good for the Pirates, good for Pirates fans. I'm happy about it, man.
Yeah, I agree, man. There's not a lot to hate. Austin, what do you think, man? Like, this is kind of starting to come together now. You probably are seeing this firsthand for the first time. They're starting to extend some guys and create the team that they're ultimately building for your generation. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy they got that done with Keller. I was a little worried if they didn't get something done with Keller that, it was in his hands this year to have a great year and put him outside of the Pirates price range. And right now he was just in the, the middle range. So, his performance last year was up and down. So that's why they were able to do this deal this year with him. If he would have pitched like he did from April to the All-Star break the entire year last year, I don't know. He might be worth more like $100 million this year. I don't know. But I'm really glad to see it, 3 years in a row now, locking guys down with Hayes, then Reynolds, now Keller. So we'll see what happens going forward, but they've got that big three core down now, and I'm excited to see where it goes.
Right. And we'll talk about the other extension candidates probably on another show, Jim, because I don't want to add more to this one, but it's good to get those three. And I think Austin hit on it there with Keller. The thing for me, it was too much of a risk to let this season go one way or another. If he had a mediocre season, I think you'd probably have a little consternation about whether he was a guy you want to extend at all, right? And if he was really, really good, I'm not sure that they would have gotten it done. I think you let a guy get that close to smelling free agency. I already think they were in the danger zone for this, by the way. You let a guy get that close to free agency, I think they probably traded on a little bit of goodwill that they built up by letting this guy have as many opportunities as he did.
Yeah, if he would look, there's risk on both sides of it, and that's just baseball when you get to these points of contracts and what you want to do with a guy. I
You
think.
mean you don't instantly do them because you have a negative article come out about you?
Oh, like just like PR where you just, oh man, something bad came out. Let's whip together an $80 million
Like
contract.
Bob sees an article and he slams his fist on the table and says, "Get
Gary,
it done."
Gary, nobody would be ridiculous enough to think that, let alone put it out on Twitter, let alone get hammered by a family member because you thought it. That would just never happen.
I mean, I would
So-
think if something like that happened, it would probably be AI generated because it's so out there. No way.
Yeah, it's like the onion stuff. But no. And look, on the flip side is, you think about it from Mitch Keller's perspective. I tend to like think about it from the player side of things. Is like, he's 27. He's logged a lot of innings last year. He's going to be 28 soon. It would probably be the worst time of his career to have that kind of injury.
Sure.
A major arm injury. You're talking like, then he's
he'd be Woodruff. He'd be Woodruff.
Yeah. Right. So there's some financial security on his end of saying, okay, you know what, maybe I could get more, but I don't want to risk that either, because if I could be pushing 30, still trying to get a big contract, and that's if I get healthy and bounce back to the way I was. So.
And Austin, you got the signing for 5 years, $77 million. I think it's really 4 years something, because they're kind of just tacking it on after this year. So they basically bought 1 year of arbitration, 3 years of free agency, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, all in all, the contract is pretty appropriate, I'd say, right? I mean, do you feel like they underpaid or overpaid? It felt like a really just good deal from both sides here, really.
Yeah, I think it was good because, Mitch gets some security. I mean, like you were saying, this would be the worst time for an injury to happen. If he gets injured, you never know. I mean, he could go from getting $77 million to an $8 million or a $10 million tryout for a year. Like a free agency, you never know how he is after Tommy John. Like if something like that happened.
Yeah, because the reality is, on the other side of it, if he goes out this year and just absolutely destroys it, and we don't know what's going to happen with him, but if he did that and he leaped up into that next tier of pitchers, think about the numbers with that contract. So I'd much rather be taking a risk on this side from the Pirates, saying, okay, if it doesn't work out, you know what, people have spent money in a lot worse ways, to, oh my God, he's looking for a $200 million contract because he looks like Garrett Cole now.
Yeah,
right?
And I think I was going to say that if he, came out in Florida this year, they see that price range and they go, okay, I guess we have to trade him for what we can get for him because we can't sign him long term. And if he came out and stunk, then they're going to be like, well, this stinks because now we just don't have a good pitcher. It was lose-lose for the Pirates if they didn't get it done this offseason, in my opinion.
Right.
I totally agree with everything that we've said here, everybody collectively. This is a good signing. We're going to come back after we take a quick break. I think we have a few more Keller things to pick up on. Like Michael just put something in the chat that I want to make sure we get out there too. So.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
Do get the app. Do remember it's free, and make sure that you're following Jose Negron over there too. He's doing a lot of work down in spring training, putting a lot of videos up there of everything going on, and good stuff so far. So Michael from 412 Double Play Podcast, he says, highest AAV for any Pirate and biggest contract for a pitcher in franchise history. Very true. They do seem to want to set a record with every contract extension they do, don't they, Jim? It seems like there's got to be something they've never done before. That said, my goodness, the the hill they had to climb was intentionally short.
Yeah. I mean, where was the bar to begin with? So, look, we know what pitching costs. They did the right thing here. I think what's going to be interesting is Keller's going to be starting his second straight opening day. And now, if he's healthy, he's got a chance to do that now for 2, 3, 4 years in a row. And earlier today, maybe someone out there that can do some homework on this, but like, I wonder what the record is for the Pirates in the modern day, at least, not back when Flippity Dewweasel did it in 1896, started 5 straight opening days. But like, I wonder what that is, because it seems like we can't go a year without having a different starting opening day pitcher.
It's certainly been a while. I mean, I bet I don't even think we've seen one probably repeat since. Jeez.
I think it was like, I saw something quickly on Twitter. It might have been like 12 years now since we've had a repeat. And maybe I'm wrong on that, but I think that's what.
I can't even think of who it would have been. Would it have been
seems
AJ?
like every year that someone's getting a first time as the opening day starter video or something out there. Yeah.
It's good to have a little consistency there. Let's talk a little bit about the core that is taking shape, because that's really ultimately what this signing means, right? And Michael says it was Liriano from 14 to 16. That makes sense.
There we go.
Regardless,
good job, Michael.
Casey likes Flippity Dewweasel. That's fair.
Hey, listen, go look at his stats, man. Impressive.
So, anyways, let's talk a little bit about this core that's starting to come together, because that's really what these signings mean. Every single one of them has been a weird hurdle. Thing is, I don't even think we asked for Hayes. It just kind of happened. I personally wasn't ready to start calling for extensions for guys yet. It was just a pleasant surprise that they did at the time. Reynolds, on the other hand, we felt was a real pivot point for this team. If you're not going to keep him, then we aren't that close, right?
Pivot
and I
point
think we
with
felt
him
the same way about Keller, because you have to have something established internal, and I'm glad to see that they put a foot down. That's what it feels like to me. Keller's the foot down. It's okay. We're keeping it right here. He's our stability point. Everything else may move around him, but he's staying. Yeah, Austin, what does that say to you as far as team construction goes? Do you think they're moving a little too slowly to lock up some of this core, or do you think the cautiousness is the smart approach?
I think they're doing a pretty, I don't know. It's kind of as I would expect them to do. I mean, with the Hayes signing, I remember catching me off guard when it first happened, because it was like, whoa, they're signing somebody. And the Reynolds signing was more caught off guard because of all the drama that led up to it with the agency. But this Keller signing, it kind of made sense. They've been talking about it. Like when I saw the notification pop up today, I wasn't really surprised, but I was pleased with it. And I think there would be more urgency this year to get an O'Neal Cruz signing done if he didn't get hurt last year. I mean, it all depends on how his season went last year. If he went out last year and crushed it, I think everybody would be pounding the table for it right now. But
I think you're right. It's
a little more cautious right now, because as much as everybody says he looks good, you really don't know. He could come out this year, and I don't want to say that, but he could be really bad this year. It's very possible, or he could be amazing. So I think that's more of a wait and see.
I think too, this is a really interesting dynamic to baseball, and how teams hand out contracts, especially with maybe younger guys, is you look around the league now, and Hayes might even be a perfect example. Let's say he repeats what he did at the last half of last year and does that this year. Man, that is going to be a steal. Will he regret that a little bit? Look what the Braves do. Look what Acuna signed for, and my goodness, he must feel like he's playing for free at this point. And so the hidden hidden caveat to all this is it really probably comes down to the player themselves, what they're comfortable with, and what makes them feel better. Do I bet on myself and I'm just going to let it ride, or do I want some of that financial security for whatever reason, and I'd like to get it now? And that's the balance that really comes down to the personality of each player, I would think.
Douglas has a good point here too. Charrington's contract signings seem much more already proven than Huntington's. I don't know if I can 100% say that yet, because I don't think Hayes was all that proven yet when he signed his extension. I think he had proven that he was defensively capable. I think they thought at the very least he was always going to be a tremendous third baseman as far as like fielding the position, but I don't know that
they could bank on that.
Yeah, I don't know that they could have possibly known what the bat would be, and in many ways, I'm not 100% sure we know right now what the bat could be. So
No.
I don't know. I don't know about calling him proven. Reynolds, yeah, I'll give you Reynolds. Reynolds, he's been up and down, but I think he always falls within a pretty predictable range. You know, he's going to be in there somewhere. And
Yeah,
I think in many ways, what you're saying is probably true. I don't think that they would go after a Cruz right now, unless he came to them like, "Hey,
Yeah.
I'll do it for like real cheap."
yeah, because you just don't know, right? I mean, you don't know how that part of it plays out.
Right.
Cruz is somebody that, hey, if he has a great year, fantastic. I'm happy, but then I think he might want to pump the brakes.
Like I keep seeing this too, like the initial thing right after Keller, because people are never happy. Immediately, it's like, you know, we now we go back to the Bauer thing, guys. You just got to give up the ghost on this, man. It ain't gonna happen. In fact, that'll be the last time I talk about it on here. At least I'm done. Like that's not gonna happen. It just isn't. I also saw people saying immediately that we had to go ahead and up Bednar now. He's the next one that people want to come up with. And like Pitt Danny here says, who's the next big contract? David Bednar keeps coming up. I don't know, man. We talked about that a while ago. I don't know how I trust a closer as far as that goes to sign him for, you know, as long as you would need to consider it to be an extension. You want to dump a couple years on the end, I can do it, but I wouldn't be giving him like 5-6 years or anything. In fact, I'd be pretty comfortable with the length they gave Keller. Just way less.
What was the contract they gave? Out of curiosity, the Vasquez contract a couple years ago, because they extended him for a couple of years.
Wasn't it 6 years, Jim? 5 or 6 years?
I don't remember. I think it was.
It just came off the books last year. So
5-year range.
That ought to tell you something. It was probably longer than that. Somebody will tell us that too. I'm sorry I didn't prepare myself on he who shan't be named.
Well,
I'm just saying that was the last time they extended a closer.
You're right.
But other than that, I mean,
it's just tough because you know when you've got an organization that chooses to dole out contracts very, very carefully, to put that into a closer, when we've just mentioned names like O'Neal Cruz or Jack Sawinski, I saw in the comments, things like that, those guys got to take precedence, man. Like they just have to, no matter how much you like David Bednar, he's a closer.
Resident research wing here, 412 Double Play Podcast. 4 years, $22.5 million for he who shan't be named.
Wow.
So that was a pretty damn good deal, actually.
I'm looking at that like, holy smokes.
Damn, Neil. Good job.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
for a minute.
Yeah. It is what it is, though. I think the core is starting to come together. I do think they have some options. I could see them maybe, let's say Henry has a good year behind the plate. I could see him being a guy that you start thinking about. I could see Cruz have a decent. I do think Cruz needs to have a decent year. I do. I would do it now. I just don't think he would. And after, some of the things that you've started to recently discover about how international players come to be signed and everything that happens to them on the way here and all the people that take bites of the apple on their way, I'm not even trying to talk any international player into signing something like destitute cheap, man. I don't want any more Tabatas, let the guy just get paid. I think I'd like to see one more year of him. If nothing else, I want to know that he's a shortstop or not. If he's not a shortstop, that's a different price tag. I'm sorry, it is.
Well, I see Pitt Danny also says Jack needs to have a 40 home run year. Well, Jack, I don't know how old you are, but the last time the Pirates had a 40 home run hitter was 1973. So, cool your jets, man. Like that
They were really
hasn't
close
happened.
a few years ago.
Yeah, it's been close, but just so we're aware, I think if Jack hits anywhere close to 30, I think that you can feel pretty darn good about Jack Sawinski at that point.
If Jack hits anywhere near 40, he too is going to be in this conversation for an extension. So the other thing I think that we've learned is this team in particular, it is extremely important to them that you are not just a good player, but you are a specific type of person. They have a type, and it is somebody that works their butt off and they quietly lead. And they now I think that causes issues in that clubhouse because I don't think they have some vocal leadership. But they clearly paint it as the ideal. They have a lot of quiet leaders, and that's what they like. And maybe that's in the mold of Andrew McCutchen, but I still think they need a little bit of boisterousness. And that sounds to me like, according to Alex Stumpf, that's what Rowdy Tellez is providing in that room right now. So, hey, maybe there is a little bit of a benefit there that we weren't thinking of.
Yeah,
guys do need that.
They do have a lot of similar types. Hayes, Keller, and Reynolds, man. They are as even keel as you could possibly get. I tend to think that individually that's a good thing for ball players because it's such a hard game to play, and Jack's kind of the same way too. Like you just have to ride everything out because it's going to be a grind. But
even Davis and Skeens are kind of like that too with the
yeah. But every once in a while, you need an AJ Burnett to say, do you see this baseball? Do you see this? Because this is going directly up your rear end. And, whether you like it or not. And those are you do need a couple guys. Now, David Bednar has some bulldog in him, but, it's nice to have a couple of those kinds of dudes.
Yeah, I totally agree. So let's talk about some negative stuff because we have to. The Athletic and Stephen Nesbitt and who was the other guy? Rosenthal? Was it Rosen?
Yeah.
They wrote the piece together at the Athletic, basically just decimating Bob Nutting and the organization for, losing. And here's why they've lost. And they did a lot of good investigative reporting. If you don't normally listen to it and didn't already, check out North Shore 9 the other night. Last night they had Stephen Nesbitt on for a long ass time. So I mean, they're going to tell you a heck of a lot more about the article itself than I'm going to bother doing here. If you haven't read it at this point, chances are you don't care. So I don't think you need me to start repeating it to you and reading you quotes from it. I'd rather talk a little bit more about, the reaction side of it. And Jim, it seemed to me like a lot of people kind of decided right away from the headline they were pissed and they were just going to go after it. I personally didn't feel like I learned very much from it, so I wasn't really excited about what I knew it was going to do to the fans. Basically, there wasn't a whole lot new in there for me, really, and I don't say that to be like braggadocious. It's just the only thing that I really learned from it was the $30K thing for delaying a trade. That's the only story I hadn't heard. And
that and for me the little nugget was the paying for the weight room facilities. That part I also did not have an idea about.
Yeah, I mean, I did, but I knew that from even the Rapsodo machines they bought last year. So I could go a
Yeah.
little further if you like. Like that stuff doesn't surprise me, and I guess I just didn't really think about it all that much. It was appropriately negative. I'm glad that somebody wrote about it. Nationally, though, I felt the timing was odd. You know, we're like right before spring training, like when I think most teams and baseball in general are trying to build up a little bit of optimism. It just feels ill-timed because the team is on the up track right now. And there's no denying that. Talent-wise, they're on the up track. They will be a good team. Maybe not this year, probably next year, year after that, year after that. They're going to be on the up track for a while here, just looking at the roster and what's coming. It's a weird time to be talking about that. Feels like it should have been like 2019 talking about everything falling apart, you know?
Yeah, I mean, Austin, go ahead. I don't want to talk all the time, so you go, man. What do you think as a young fella going through this? Like, I don't know when your Pirate fandom started, but this would kind of be your first, like, okay, I'm an adult looking at this. What does this mean to me as a younger fan?
I mean, I was definitely a fan for all the, the 2013 to 15. Like, I was just a kid, enjoying.
But you don't. You're thinking of that different now than
definitely.
Yeah. So that's
different.
why. Yeah. So go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know. I like Gary said, I wasn't surprised by anything I saw in that article, and yeah, I am in that, that right now looking towards spring training, getting ready. There's gonna be real baseball. There was real baseball on today. Dodgers, Padres. There's stuff going on this weekend. Pirate games start, and I'm ready to get things going, and they are in the right direction right now. I think they are doing a better job. A lot of that stuff was on some developmental stuff, some drafting stuff, and there are some recent things like already the 2020 draft year where you're kind of like, was Nick Gonzalez maybe the best pick? I don't know. That whole draft class was kind of like at the top of the board. Like, not a lot of those guys really around him even turned out to be that great.
Right.
So you can look at it that way, but I don't know. Talent-wise, they're in a really good spot. I mean, yeah, the Cincinnati might be higher than them in the farm rankings, or but they've got young, controllable pitchers like one step away right now, and I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of those things people said about in that article about the ownership, and I feel like you could probably say that about a couple other teams too. Probably a lot of other teams.
Could, yeah.
But it just, yeah, I agree. I feel like if you want to put out an article like that, put it out last November, or something like that. It just, I don't know. I don't think they really needed it. And now it is giving people a reason to bash the Keller trade today, or the Keller extension, not trade. Give them a reason to bash that because they say, oh, it's just a PR move. And it's just even though his own brother came out and said it's not.
Yeah,
but,
that's the shame of it, because it's good work. The piece was good,
mm-hmm.
and it was well thought out and really smart, and a lot of good stuff in it. Like, I think, Jim, there was some context in it about the difficulty in changing philosophies for development.
That's where I want to go.
But I think that's an interesting thing that it probably gets glazed over because it's lost in the shuffle of, Bob is cheap, Bob is cheap, Bob is cheap, and he is. But you miss like some meat that I think is important there about that development aspect of it. It's probably impossible to say that Ben Cherington is successful at developing players or not right now. We have, 2 or 3 of his draft picks here right now? You got Carmen Majinski and Henry Davis and Nick Gonzalez, I guess you could count. And
yeah, that
I give him a developmental win on Keller. The
real proof on all that is coming here very shortly. So
sure, I think like 8 years from now, I'll be able to go. Ben Charrington's regime was terrible at developing. I just don't know how I make that argument when everybody he brought in, for the most part, hasn't been there. So I'm not 100% sure that I'm not 100% sure that I can get there. I like it being documented. It was interesting to me that there's been some bucking against it by some of the internal coaching staff. I knew that to be true. I knew that John Nunnally did that. I think that probably has more to do with him being fired than working with Brian Hayes, but they tended to go the other way with their conjecture. I don't agree with Andy Haynes being the top of the food chain here, but I have not liked several bosses I've worked for, and you kind of have to do what your boss wants. So.
And they're married to it for better or worse. I mean, you go down with the ship, I suppose, if that's where your convictions are. I will say, just like overall, when I look at the article coming out, and look, I don't know, like there were a lot of like sources in there, and they like that takes time to put together. I don't know what kind of timeline they were on. You have bosses that tell you I need this done by this, or we want to get it out. So who knows? Like it came out now. It is what it is. The one big takeaway I do have from it is like, I will never poo-poo somebody coming out and saying, hey, look, is somebody doing enough of what they should be doing? Are they going to continue doing that and shining a light on that? The flip side to that is it rips open scabs for fans. And there's a lot of Pirates PTSD that comes out when something like that does come out.
I mean, for like, selfishly, I just don't like what it does to people that aren't here to be Pirates fans. They're here to torture Pirates fans. It just gives them bundles of burning twigs to throw at wooden houses. That's all. And I think that it was a well done piece that'll be misused mostly.
Well, yeah,
and it won't do anything. It won't do anything to change anything. The
everybody has an agenda. Yeah, that's a big part of it. Is when I sat down and I read that, part of it brings up to me, which is, okay, get angry at Bob, but man, you should be angry at baseball too. Like this is what they allowed. This is what they give owners on a whim. I'm just going to shut it down for 5-10 years and do it this way. And you got a third of the league taking that approach. There's no parameters in place. I mean, be mad at baseball.
It's just funny timing. Like Austin, here we are. We said we're on the upswing, right? You get fans riled up about stuff that has happened as far back as 10 years ago, right? And it's still going on to a certain degree, or things aren't improving in a certain way. And I get that. It's all valid. But you're not going to be able to deny what's happening on the baseball field. And you're not going to talk fans into, now that they're getting better and watchable, taking out their anger from 4 years ago when they weren't. Now, that's why it's ineffective, because it's not going to do anything at this point. Fans aren't going to boycott something that's actively improving. They just aren't.
Most of the comments from stuff yesterday I was seeing were, people that only come out when the Pirates stink. And they're the ones that are like, oh, this is why I don't watch this team, or this is why I haven't been here in 15 years, and, and all that kind of stuff. And most of the people that, have been rooting for them, have been sticking by their side, all that kind of stuff. We're just kind of like how we're saying, we know this stuff. Like, it's nothing new. It doesn't change anything. We know this going in. We suffer through it, and we're going to keep rooting for them because they're, getting better. They're improving. They're younger. They're innovating a little bit better. Maybe, I don't know. They're more exciting to watch than they were last year, the year before. And you just have a feeling that trajectory is just going to keep, going up. And
And what I've always said too is like, look, the people that say I'm out, right? I'm done. Like baseball, the whole thing is screwed up. Bob exploits it. I can't support them anymore. Fine. I totally get it. I walked away from baseball after the strike in the 90s because I was so upset with how things were done. It took me a little bit to come back to that. And I can respect that. But it's like while they're doing that, they're also like commenting and needling about it and trying to get under the skin of fans that simply want to enjoy the game and want to follow the process. And they try to make it look like you're stupid because you do that. And to me, that's not the cool part. Hey, look, you want to walk away, fine.
Yep.
I'll leave you alone, but don't get on here and if someone has to comment about the team and they didn't mention Bob Nutting, that now you're somehow going to drop some knowledge bomb on someone. You're not.
I mean, I say this all the time, but when there is another playoff game at PNC Park, and there will be at some point, every single cheer is going to sound exactly the same. And the guy sitting right next to you, sucking down Miller Lite after Miller Lite, will be the same guy who was online telling you were a moron for believing 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's definitely
and you
true.
won't know, and they won't know you. And now they might know me. I don't want them to, but they will. And then they'll just walk the other direction like somebody does when they see us at Pirates Fest, Jim. But it honest to God won't matter, because at the end of the day, you're going to be watching the Pirates do something that you've been waiting for them to do. That's all. Will they ever win it all? I wouldn't make that promise if they had the Dodgers budget.
Yep.
You know, I wouldn't make the promise for the Dodgers this year. I mean, even though the Padres just decided not to show up for this first spring training game, like that first inning, I think it was 8-0.
To reinforce everyone's fears about the Dodgers right away.
Yeah, I don't know, man. All in all, the article was good. I hope people understand that I'm not saying it wasn't good. Thought the timing was a little strange. There's some good stuff in it. I think it's worth a read. Do so. You should read it for yourself too. You shouldn't listen to what other people tell you, unless it's Stephen Nesbitt telling you exactly what he wrote on North Shore 9. Have at it and listen to that if you enjoy the audiobook version.
Right.
But in all sincerity, it wasn't revolutionary to me. It wasn't anything that raised my eyebrows. I kind of moved on from it, almost sighed just knowing what I'm going to deal with because of it. That's all.
Well, yeah, we think of it in a little different terms. I think, I will say it does remind me that not everybody is super plugged in as maybe we are. And hey, if there was something news to you in there and it upsets you, then you do have a right to be upset about it.
Sure, you can be as upset as you like to be. I just ask again, what are you going to do about it?
And I'll ask, what's baseball plan on doing about it?
I hear all the time, like, well, don't go. They don't care. It won't matter. It won't change anything.
That's a comment I saw was, and yet 30,000 people still show up to opening day.
And again, I'll say, are you going to choose now to not show up? Like when the team's actually kind of getting good? I don't think so. You won't. And if you do, people will come from afar to watch O'Neill Cruz for them. They won't have to be wearing black and gold.
And if it were as simple as fans not showing up to get rid of an owner, it's nothing structured that way anymore. It's just not.
It hasn't been structured that way. I mean, like unless an owner goes out and does something overtly stupid and criminal, and even then they can sometimes get away with it. Robert Kraft,
Dan Snyder.
Yeah, you do something really, but fans aren't making that happen. The league is. The other owners are. The other owners don't want to deal with the stain that you are. But if you're just abusing the roles that they all voted for together, they don't care. Because they might be the one abusing the roles next year. Why would they say anything?
They all love the freedom of of what baseball allows.
Yeah.
They
The other thing
really
I saw
do.
from this, the other thing I saw from this article, I want to hit before we go to something else, because I do want to move on to some baseball soul searching, which is making a lineup.
Oh man, did I have some trouble? Whew. We're
But
gonna try to cram that in the third segment, Gary. I need 5
going to
hours.
be fine. It's going to be fine.
All right.
The last thing I want to say was people were talking about Bob Nutting basically again voting for the CBA. Guys, you have to understand that one person voting against it is never going to happen in these leagues. It just isn't. It doesn't happen that way. You're not going to be the one ostracized person. You're just not. Nobody wants that. Nope. You know why? Because that is how Bob would lose his position or get forced out, by being the one stooge that decided to stand against it.
It's gonna
And he
take,
doesn't want to.
yeah, it'll take something like the new labor agreement comes up and enough of them huddle in a room and say, look, we got to do something, but no one's going to step out on their own and just, bear the brunt of that. They're just
How much
not.
further could you go than we did in 2019? For real. We had people standing outside PNC Park picketing. We had reporters writing "our team, not his" all over the place. We had people like asking the mayor to check in on if there's anything they could do to boot him out of the team and force him
Hashtag
to
hands
sell
around
it.
PNC.
Yeah, threatened to revoke the lease. Like lawyers looked over the contracts to see if there was any loopholes they could. What more could you do? What do you think's changed in 4 years that all of a sudden now you're gonna do something because you read an article? You're gonna do nothing. If you don't want to watch baseball, don't watch it. Like, that's all there is to it. Don't watch it. If
And
you
don't
can't stomach it, don't do it.
Yeah, and don't expect people every time they want to talk about it to mention all the things that are completely obvious to them already, which is we're already playing with one hand and foot tied behind our backs.
And I'm getting all animated like anybody watching this show thinks that way anyway. So let's take another break. Let's come back. Let's do some
Ooh.
real baseball there.
Oh, some lineups.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
All right, welcome back to the Pirates Fan Forum here on DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. Jim, Gary, and Austin with you, and we just got done talking about a really happy subject and a really down subject. Now we're going to talk about a fun subject, because what is more fun about being a fan than building a lineup, Jim? We could do it every single day and come up with a different mix every single day of what we want or think is the best thing. So let's approach it where we all kind of take a run through it. Okay. And you're going to have to pick your starters here, right?
Right.
So here's how we'll do that. If you have a platoon situation, call it out. Say you have a platoon situation and you need a lefty-righty lineup, okay? If you don't, if you just think you want to run an everyday out there, and defy everything that Derek Shelton believes in and dreams about, then I think you can go ahead and just put that out there too. I think we're all probably going to have some form of a platoon lineup though, right? Most likely.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to keep it as, because you can get really complicated with this because there's a lot of combinations,
right,
and whatever. So
I bet we could do the first four pretty easy together.
I'll try to simplify mine as much as I can and just say if I'm on the fence about it being a platoon situation. So,
well, you go first.
Okay. I will tell you, sitting here, it's tough because, I think the collection of names are better, right? As you sit down to do it, there's no doubt about that.
Yep.
The ceiling is higher. My problem comes in is like, do the pieces necessarily fit in the lineup where you need certain things, and people look at lineups very traditionally and untraditionally now. So, I thought about
You're
this
leading
long and
off
hard.
Rowdy Tellez is what you're trying to build up to.
Hey, Kyle Schwarber. We're going to do Kyle Schwarber 2.0.
Dan Vogelback.
Yeah. I've got Cruz leading off. I put him at the top of the lineup again. I've come around as a older baseball fan to thinking of one thing with him is he's your most talented guy. I want him to get as many at bats as he can. I want to run him till the wheels fall off, which they did last year before we even got to run him. So I've got Cruz up there. I want him to jumpstart things. I think he'll get RBIs regardless. The power will come wherever he's in the lineup. So I went with Cruz leading off, obviously playing shortstop. And I also think that this lineup doesn't have an ideal guy to put there anyway. So that's why I went there.
Gotcha.
Second, I've got Brian Reynolds in left field. Third, I've got Kutch, and I've got him DHing. Fourth, I've got, and I struggled with this one too. Fourth, and I'm putting a lot on this young man's plate. I know that. I've got Henry Davis batting cleanup.
All right, I wasn't expecting that. Okay.
I'm going to see if he can handle it at the beginning. And I want to extend that lineup a little bit if I can. So I'm going to put Henry at cleanup, and I'm going to see how he responds to it. Do you want me to go through the whole thing, and you want to do top four, and then we'll round it out at the bottom?
You're way different than me, so keep going.
Okay. So fifth, I've got Jack Sawinski. I've got him in center field. I've got him batting fifth. I think you got to keep the power somewhere right in the middle. And then I want to protect him a little bit behind that, and that's where I put Hayes. I'm comfortable with him somewhere in that fifth or sixth spot in the lineup. After that, I've got Rowdy at first, and that's where you can get into the situation with Connor Joe or Triolo or however you want to play that.
Okay.
Right field, Tellez is a first baseman. I don't know if you guys knew that or not. I didn't mention it. I've got Olivares in right, and rounding it out, I've got Peggy at second.
I like it. We'll talk about it overall, but let's get everybody's out here first. Austin, have at it, brother. Your lineup.
Okay, so like Jim, I started off with Cruz at shortstop.
Yes, I'm thinking like a youngster. Yes.
Well, I like Cruz leading off because, well, we don't know what he's going to look like on base yet. But, I mean, if he can steal bags, I mean, he's going to get pitched around a lot. It kind of goes back to what I guess it kind of hinges on my second player. I like having Reynolds in the two as well because I think it's hard to pitch around Cruz if you got Brian Reynolds right behind him. So They kind of have to throw him some more pitches. And if they do pitch around him, maybe Cruz still second base. You got Brian Reynolds right there to help clean him in. So I like those two right at the top. I too have Kutch in the 3-hole. I like what I saw from him last year. I mean, he's not maybe the ideal 3-hitter, but he got on base a lot. He seemed to come up in big situations.
He's not gonna end an inning for you.
No,
you know.
I agree. Then I'm a little bit straying off the path a little bit. 4 is so.
Uh-oh. He froze just as he was talking about.
Sure.
Austin, come back. Austin.
No.
There's a lot of options there.
Austin. You're going to have to start over at 4.
Now.
You froze up, brother.
Bob
start
Nutting.
over at 4.
Sorry. It was cutting out.
He censored you at 4.
Yeah,
he was afraid of what you were going to say.
Yeah. So for 4, I was saying I think it's a little tough this year to decide for 4. There's a lot of different ways they could go with this. They could do Davis, like you said. They could do Sawinski. I had Rowdy Tellez in here. I mean, I don't know how well that'll work out. I mean, if he could find some way to get back to that, well, I don't know, 30-plus homer potential, I mean, that would be a good cleanup hitter. 100-plus RBIs. I think he had a couple years ago. That's a cleanup guy. I mean, that's who I'd want in there to finish that out. But that could change for me. But right now, that's just what I stuck with. Obviously playing first base. And then I have Key Bryan in the 5 hole. He had a really good year last year. I think he deserves to hit high enough in the lineup. Maybe not top 3, but if they put him 1 or 3, I could see that as well. And then I have Jack Sawinski behind him. He's got enough pop that I think he should be high enough in the lineup. 7, I have Davis. Maybe need to see a little more of him before I move him up any higher, but I think he has the potential to move up as well in that lineup. And then in the 8, I actually didn't hear what his 8 hitter was because it kind of cut out. He said Peguero. Who'd you say at 9?
Peguero was your 9, huh?
Peguero was my 9. Olivares was my 8.
That's who I have at 8.
Okay. So I guess it's my turn to do a lineup then, huh?
Platoon.
My turn to do a lineup while Austin's internet resets itself.
Well, Austin
sorry.
Full max headroom on us here.
Yeah, I just said Olivares at 8 and Peguero at 9. So
okay.
All right, I'm gonna get through mine now. I think this is a little different. I think they're gonna go with Oneil Cruz, so I don't believe the Pirates are gonna agree with me at all.
Yeah, like this is. I think maybe that's something we need to say too. Is like this is us setting the line, like us setting our lineup how we might do it, not necessarily how we think the Pirates are going to do it.
This is us ignoring them altogether, right?
Yes.
So I would lead off Andrew McCutchen. His on-base percentage, I think, is going to make him a very productive member of the top of that lineup. And I think he'll set the table for everyone else. If people want to pitch around him, Kutch is more than happy to let them. He'll get on base. He can still steal if he wants to, or he can just be on base. I have no problem with that as my leadoff hitter. And I think he is capable of helping turn the lineup over too. Once you actually get rolling, I like him being up there. And it allows me to use Cruz where I really want to use him. So number 2, I'm going with Bryan Reynolds. I think Bryan Reynolds, being a switch hitter, is the perfect number 2 hitter for this team. Most consistent. He can hit for power. He can hit for line drives. He can draw walks.
He'll be number 2.
Everything. Yeah, I see no reason why Bryan Reynolds wouldn't be number 2. Number 3 for me may surprise you. It is Jack Sawinski. I want Jack Sawinski in the number 3 hole because I think his power is going to play up top a lot better. And when he studies what's going on with the pitchers in the first inning, it does not help him. He needs to just get up there and hit. I think he actually gets inside his own head. So I'd rather just get his at-bat out of the way early. My number 4 hitter would be Oneil Cruz. Because I think if inevitably it does get to the point where he's leading off the second inning, I don't have a problem with that. And I think he can set the table for everything else that's coming. I have to break up the lefties, so the next one is Ke'Bryan Hayes. And I think him batting 5th, he's a good kind of hitter for 5th. 5 is kind of like 2. You need somebody there who can get on base, make contact, keep the lineup moving. I like the idea of having him there. Then I would go Liover Peguero. I think.
Whoa.
Liover Peguero has power and speed, and I love that more towards the middle of the lineup than the bottom. Then I'd go Henry Davis. Rowdy Tellez would be next. And then I would finish it out with Josh Palacios.
Okay. Yeah. A couple thoughts. I had Kutch initially at leadoff, and then I just said to myself, 37, Achilles, elbow. I'm not looking to run him into the ground. I'll trust his eye to keep an inning moving later in that same thing. That's why that's why I moved him out of there. I had it initially. I
I don't disagree with any of that, by the way. I just think he'll walk so much that, and I think like that's something he has just become a technician at.
It's so
feels like if I put him in leadoff and I told him I wanted him to draw 100 walks this year, he could.
Yeah, and I like that. I think too, though, if he's in the 3-hole, you know, like if he draws a walk in the 3-hole, setting up for the cleanup. I mean, you got Cruz and Reynolds in front of him. You never know if they get on base. Like you might have a grand slam opportunity for your cleanup hitter. I mean,
see, that was part of my thinking too. I'm kind of tired of the meat of the order wanting to draw walks. That's why I put Jack Sawinski and O'Neill Cruz and Ke'Bryan Hayes in there back to back to back.
Where did you have?
I want them to produce runs.
Where did you have? You had Hayes at 5 and then Jack. No, you had.
I have Jack at 3.
Jack at 3.
Jack at 3, Cruz at 4, Hayes at 5, and then I went Peguero 6.
That's right. Okay, let me tell you why. Let me tell you what my thinking was. You were talking about Jack. I was trying to keep Jack toward the middle of the order, and I had him at 5, but I didn't want them to be able to pitch around Jack. I think if you can keep guys that have to throw to him and keep him with a little bit of protection, I thought Ke'Bryan Hayes would be perfect for that behind him, and that you can't just move around Jack and, oh, by the way, you've offset that left-right thing. So that was my line of thinking there with that. Austin, what's your takeaway from Gary's lineup?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely different. I do like some of the reasoning for those things. You know, I think, I think they have the ability this year to maybe do something different. Like if they were to do something like what Gary said for his lineup, I feel like they might be a little deeper in some of those later spots that a guy like Peguero could move up to like a 6th spot, or and a guy like Rowdy could be low enough where, I mean, I don't know where he hit last year with the Brewers, but I mean,
mostly on the IL.
and then not at all when he played.
Yeah.
Wah, wah.
Like Pirates Queen here, she says, however you make this lineup, there's so much potential. If used correctly, you're going to have some big results. I think that's kind of what I learned. We had 3 distinct different lineups here without any talking about it beforehand. And we came up with 3 completely different lineups, and I'd be pretty happy to try all 3 of them out there. And I didn't even get into, like, Hayes is a decent leadoff option.
Yeah, I had Hayes at leadoff originally. In my original thinking of it, I think I had Hayes and then Cruz and Reynolds, and then I think I had Kutch in the 5-hole. But I think Kutch is valuable enough that he probably still should be top 3. But I mean, if they tried it, Hayes, Cruz, Reynolds, or I had Hayes, Cruz, Reynolds. Oh, yikes. That'd be different. Hayes, Reynolds, Cruz, something mixed like that with Kutch lower could be interesting as well. But I seriously think, like, our thoughts aside, I think they like O'Neill Cruz as the leadoff hitter. But I'm curious to see if they'll do it against lefties this year or not, if they will think of a Hayes or Kutch at the top against a left-handed pitcher, if they'll run Cruz out there all year.
Right, and that's the thing, too. Like, I really did try in my lineup to keep that lefty-righty stuff going on, because I do think it's pretty crucial now with the way you have to use relievers. And so, you got the Cruz being his situation. Reynolds can switch. Then you've got 2 righties. Then you've got in Kutch and Davis. Then you're back to Jack as a lefty. Then you're back to Hayes as a righty. Then you're back to Tellez. And I was trying to really be mindful of guys that maybe on base percentages are not really where you want them to be if they're going to be in crucial spots. And that's why I had Peguero down low. And that's even why I bumped Hayes down just a touch, because I felt like he's a good enough hitter that I still think he can thrive in a good spot, but he doesn't have to be the guy to try and get on all the time.
I would say like most lineups in the league, despite popular belief, they're pretty living organisms. Like they tend to change a decent amount. The Atlanta Braves are really the only example that doesn't. They tend to stick with their starters. They leave them in their spots. They don't really mess with them much. They swap out a catcher every once in a while.
I guess when you're awesome, you can do that.
Well, awesome, but also thinking differently because they're bucking not just a baseball trend, a sports trend. They are the one team that is out there saying, no, F all that rest. We're going to we paid for these guys and we're going to kill them if we have to. Right?
They had 4 guys last year who played 162, I think.
Yep. And it's definitely a trend that they are the only ones doing. And so they're either smarter than everyone else or it's the reason that they're dying in the playoffs. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's really, really difficult to say whether it's smart or not. They certainly have the talent to win, but at some point, someone's going to start asking why they're not getting through the playoffs then. And then you have to look at, well, what are they doing differently? Well, the one thing they're not doing is this rest stuff that everyone else is doing. So the lineup's going to change, and Derek Shelton's got a propensity to do that anyway. That said, I think he's also shown us when he feels like he's got a spot for you, you ain't changing. Like we call Brian Reynolds number 2. I don't think any of us even bothered messing with it. Not only is he the perfect fit for it, we know beyond a shadow of a doubt that's where he's going to be. Right. They're going to put him at number 2. So, part of me almost doesn't want to mess with Kutch either and just leave him 3 because you're probably right. That's probably what they'll do, right? So, but when he does lock in on guys, he tends to lock in on them. So he doesn't change it constantly there. You know what we got to do, Jim?
We're going to call your shot. Real quick, though, I want to say, it'll be interesting, Gary. Maybe we'll just revisit this right before the season starts and see if we have changed our minds just in anything because of spring training and how guys have looked.
Jason has one funny question here. Biggest question, who is going to be that one guy that Shelty continues to play while the fans call for his head?
Hey, it's not a bad question.
That's a great question. Somebody should do a call your shot next week.
Yeah, hint.
Look me up, Jason, online and do a call your shot because that's a great one for real. And then Jason wants to know why he hates Cruz as a leadoff hitter. Probably because he's a stereotypical cleanup hitter and anybody who's over the age of 30. So it bothers me still to this day, but I know it'll happen, and I know that Jim's right about why it'll happen. But and it's the same reason Acuna leads off in Atlanta. It's the same reason Altuve leads off in Houston. Termar will probably lead off here, if he hits the way he's supposed to. So I think the game has changed.
Yep.
And that's the best way you can put it. Time for Call Your Shot, which, as always, is brought to you by our friends over at Shop Yins. I got the hat on.
I can't even do this. This is how dumb I am. There. For anyone just listening, I'm trying to point at the Yins trademark on the logo on our screen, and I'm too stupid to figure it out.
Well, it's there. It's there. I promise it's there, Jim. So let's do it. It's our friend JP Bucko, Pillsbury Joe Boy on Twitter. Jonathan, he was on with us last week. So I'm going to play the theme, and then we'll get back to it. All right. So JP Bucko, Pillsbury Joe Boy says, is Triolo more valuable as a utility guy than an everyday second baseman if the position race there is close this spring? It's a great question, Jen. It's something that we've talked about as far as Triolo making the team. I think his value is in his ability to play all kinds of different positions as well as the stick. And I could see him potentially step up and earn a starting gig over time. But this year, the value is in the utility. Got to have somebody to back up third base. He's the dude. I think you got to have somebody to back up first base and second base. He's the dude. I think he's going to kind of surprise you, and they're going to end up sticking him in the outfield once or twice this year too. He can play out there, and I think we'll see them explore that a little bit this year. But yeah, to me, I don't see a starting role for him this year. So I think utility is probably where he's most valuable. Austin, what say you?
I agree. I think he's best fit to play multiple positions. That they're going to give Hayes days off. Hayes isn't going to play 160 games. He might not even play 150, with his injury history over there, and they want to keep him fresh. And so you're going to need a guy behind him. And, I mean, it does depend on that battle at second base. I mean, yeah, if it's close over there and you got some guys that are really standing out, then Triolo's probably not going to win the job there. So you need a guy to back up over there and a guy to back up first. But I think he's good enough that if he proves himself in the spring this year, he could find himself in the lineup every day, just probably not the same position every day. He might be a third today and then tomorrow at second, but kind of stay steady, in the lineup.
Right,
like
Jim, it's the
Harrison.
classic. Right. I was just going to say Josh Harrison, Jim. It's the classic Josh Harrison argument. Josh Harrison was a really, really good utility player. And then when they made him an everyday third baseman, he was a below average everyday third baseman. Right?
Yeah.
So is that what you're doing to Jared Triolo if you make him an everyday anything? Is he better off bouncing around, filling in spots? Some guys are. Some guys are made for that.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about value, right? So value to teams may measure that differently than like, can you just play one spot and do it decently? I also to try to stay true to form to the question, and Austin mentioned this, which was in that question, they mentioned if the competition is close. Well,
Yeah.
if it's close, then Jared Triolo is not my guy. He's got a bigger role than that, and he will serve the team better than that. He would have to just absolutely rip it away from someone. Otherwise, I think he's going to have to play his way into that role and prove that they flat out just can't keep him off the field in one way, shape, or form.
It's probably the best way to look at it. And there's one more topic going on in our chat here that I want to bring up before we get out of here today. Pirates Queen's talking about it. I guess her husband Scrivener there, he screamed out about JVM. Who's the next JVM? She doesn't think any player starts out looking as the next scapegoat. She's right. Unless they do. And I think like somebody like Yasmani Grandal could wind up being the guy that people get upset that they play. I think that's probably a good one. Rowdy Tellez has that capability, correct? Joshua Palacios, somebody that perhaps they've held on to a year longer than they should have, and we'll find that out quickly. There's ways there's always going to be somebody that's JVM, is the point. There will always be a last guy on your roster. Yes, you can throw whatever you want, Jim.
Let me throw out a name here that I will tell you that it crossed my mind today. I hope it never happens because Pirate fans, you got to understand. Look, we signed Mitch Keller to this deal today. If you are expecting just because we finally paid someone $15 million to go out there and turn into Max Scherzer, and when he doesn't, you're going to boo the piss out of him because his ERA is around 4. I really hope we don't get to that point where if Mitch Keller's the same guy as he was last year, it's still a good signing. I don't want people expecting, oh my goodness, he's making the money now. No, he's not. He still is who he is. Let him be.
Well, very technically speaking, if that's the way they look at it, he's not making the money until next year, really.
Well, yeah, but they won't see. You know what I'm saying? Like I can just see, my goodness, let's just get educated about some things before you act like an idiot. That's all.
But there will always be somebody on the roster that everyone wants to get rid of, and everyone thinks is the bane of everyone's existence. And
I'd be a little afraid if we get an injury or something that the scapegoats could become like Alika Williams, if they end up calling up
Yeah,
a
yeah,
Billy
yeah.
McKinney or Jake Lamb to the roster or something like that, that's when I'd get a little bit like, okay, that might be the guy. Because
Right,
like
I have a dark
Matthias
horse.
last year,
I have a
you
dark
didn't expect
horse.
him to come up, but
I have a dark horse because he came in harder than Ron Jeremy, Chase Anderson. That dude
Oh.
acted like such an idiot, like in the locker room. I've never heard somebody talk like that in their first interview. What in the world was going on? What was going through that guy's mind?
yeah, it
Come
was a
in.
minor league deal. He's not guaranteed anything there, and he acted like, oh, I'm here to start. I'm here to like, I don't know.
Yeah. But he was like, I will destroy everyone around me. There will be no mercy. And it's like Jim was on Twitter like, hello.
Well, yes, I took some liberties with that, but it was all just because of like him talking like he was really there to start. I guess, hey, from a competitor
Ivan Draco.
standpoint,
There you go.
from a competitor standpoint, he thinks he's going to be in the mix. That's fine. I think Grandal is a good one though, Gary, because people will hate the fact that maybe he's even just playing when they think Henry should be out there for 148 games catching.
The Austin Hedges effect this year.
And they'll just resent him simply because it took Henry Davis out of the lineup.
Yeah, or David or Douglas Smith will get his favorite, and Jason Delay will-
Aroldis Chapman making a lot of money, not liked. If he comes in and blows some stuff, he's also a big time guy that you could see scapegoated.
Yeah, if he has some home run trouble like he did early on last year, then yeah, you're right. There will be a lot of stuff like that. I don't know. Point is, there's always going to be somebody. Even the 79 Pirates had somebody that probably shouldn't have been there, and fans were tired of seeing get played, and it's just always going to be that way, especially in a market like this. But I mean, I remember even like the stacked Dodgers teams years ago used to have like Kike Hernandez on the team that they couldn't stop playing like every freaking game. In the World Series.
There's always somebody that fans can latch onto. Hey, like bullpen guys are good for that too. Come, if you're if you're a Colin Selby and you make the team, boy,
right?
He might not be too popular either.
Well, as long as they don't sign Colton Wong, I'm okay. So, Austin, this has been great, man. Thank you. It was a good first time. I think,
dude,
really, really solid performance, brother. You
Yeah,
definitely got to do this again with us.
Yeah,
you
for
know
sure.
you know your stuff, bud.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry about the little Wi-Fi issues there in a little bit. I was wired and must have been bad connection or something, but I got to
No
figure it out.
issues at all, man. We understand and we deal with them all the time, and probably worse, right, Jim?
Yeah, for sure. So
Yeah, but thank you guys so
Good
much
stuff,
for having
dude.
me on the show. Yeah.
absolutely, man. Appreciate you.
Wonderful stuff. And despite all the distractions and everything that you might see out there, people, today was a good day to be a Pirates fan. This was a good day. They signed a good pitcher, and they locked him in place through the perceivable end of this decade for the most part. And that's what they've done with everybody they've locked up. Let's keep that train rolling. Let's keep moving forward. Let's keep adding to this core. Who knows? Maybe they'll beat the odds, right?
Well, we've got games coming up real soon here. We're going to finally get to see what it starts to look like on the field instead of just on paper.
That's right. Let's give it to our buddy Ben to take it away.
Let's go, Bucks!
Yeah, buddy. Thanks, everybody.